Jai Shri Radhe. So Vaishnav ko Jai Shri Krishna. Continuing with the English recitation of the stories of the 252 Vaishnavas of Sri Gosaiji. This is day 31 of the reading, and we are in the story of Baila Kothari, which is Varta number 10. Baila Kothari, Varta 10. Part 3. Once, Sri Gosaiji was residing in Asaruva village. Someone went to the chief minister of Gujarat to gossip. In the district of Dholaka, there was one Lachabai and her brother, who lived together in one house. That Lachabai was very influential in all Gujarat. The person who went to gossip took with him one well-known eunuch named Baj Bahadur, who was part of her entourage. They said, "There is a holy man come to Gokul. He is living in Rajnagar, cohabiting with Kothari's sister, although he is reputed to be a great soul." Lachabai gave her written permission for Baj Bahadur to go to Asaruar and investigate. Baj Bahadur came to Asaruar and surrounded Sri Gosaiji's residence. Sri Gosaiji had already heard about this and had retreated inside. In his betak, Pancha Bhagela, Iboji, the Rajput Garasiya and Kothari were present with about 10 others. Baj Bahadur came into the betak and sat down. Sri Gosaiji was sitting on his cushions. Baj Bahadur stood up and bowed low to Sri Gosaiji. Then he sat down again. Baj Bahadur then said something to Sri Gosaiji in his own language. Sri Gosaiji replied to him in that same language in a very nice way and explained perfectly to him whatever he had asked. Baj Bahadur was immensely pleased. In Sri Gosaiji's response, he recognized his divinity. He felt that Sri Gosaiji was the Lord himself and that the others had been crazy and just wanted to lure him into conflict. On the day that Baj Bahadur came to Sri Gosaiji, it was the rainy season. However, there had been no rainfall in that part of the country. All the people were perplexed. Baj Bahadur addressed Sri Gosaiji, "O Maharaj, this land is suffering without water." Sri Gosaiji replied that a lot of rain was on the way. Baj Bahadur repaid his respects and began to set off. Sri Gosaiji gave him a prasadi stuffed palm leaf. Baj Bahadur put it on his head and requested Sri Gosaiji to give him something that he could keep with him on his head at all times. Sri Gosaiji presented him with a betel nut. He put it up to his head out of respect and then tucked it into the fold of his turban. He prostrated to Sri Gosaiji one more time and set off to go home. While he was on the way, it suddenly began to rain. It was heavy rain and he had to struggle to get home. Baj Bahadur felt so happy. After going home, he proceeded to tell Lachabai all of this news. She immediately gave the order that the one who had told the tale should pay for that misdemeanor with his life, so that in future no one would be tempted to do the same. The mother of the telltale heard this order to execute her son. She went to Sri Gosaiji, taking her son with her, and taking shelter of Sri Gosaiji, pleaded with him, saying, "The people here want to lynch my son, therefore I have brought him, my dear son, to you." Sri Gosaiji then sent an instruction to Baj Bahadur not to execute anyone. Baj Bahadur accepted this plea of Sri Gosaiji and forbade his men to act as planned. After some days, Baj Bahadur summoned the offender to court. He said, "I have saved you because of Sri Gosaiji's request. However, if you ever spread lies and rumours again, I shall personally finish you off on the spot." He consoled him in this way. Sri Gosaiji returned to Gokul after some more days. Bhav Prakash. Here the teaching is that a Vaishnava must have a compassion for all living beings. However wicked a thief or gossip a person may be, they should, as far as possible, be delivered rather than slain. Thus concludes Varta 10, the story of Baila Kothari, who was a recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava, although truly there is no end to his tale. We go forward into Varta 11, the story of Gopal Das, Baila Kothari's son-in-law, who lived in Rupapur. Bhav Prakash. Gopal Das is a devotee of a sattvic disposition. In the internal Leela, his name is Sarangi, who manifests from Champakalata and is therefore a form of her divine loving sentiment. Sarangi also has a very close Sakhi named Gomati, who appears here as Gopal Das's wife. Gopal Das was born to a merchant in Rupapur. Gomati was born in Asaruva to Baila Kothari. Gopal Das was mute from birth. This was because in his previous birth he had been Narsi Mehta, who was always begging the Lord for something or other and causing him much trouble. For this offence he was born mute. When he was 5 years old, he was engaged to Baila Kothari's daughter, Gomati. Part 1. Gopal Das was Baila Kothari's son-in-law. The first time that Sri Gosaiji had graced Baila Kothari's home, Kothari had all his family members initiated with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandh, and made them all bow low to Sri Gosaiji. At the moment when it was Gopal Das's turn, Sri Gosaiji asked Baila Kothari, "Who is this?" Gopal Das was 9 years old at the time. Kothari replied that this boy was his daughter's chosen husband. Sri Gosaiji laughed and said, "Gomati's husband is an ocean. He is very innocent. Will this be a suitable match?" Kothari answered, "O Maharaj, he will become an ocean through your grace." Regarding Gopal Das to thus be Kothari's son-in-law, Sri Gosaiji sat him on his lap and put some of his lip juice into his mouth. As he swallowed it, Gopal Das's intelligence was immediately purified and enlightened. Gopal Das prostrated to Sri Gosaiji and began his composition of the Shri Vallabha. One of the lines read, "I bow to Lord Sri Vittal, beautiful like the rain-filled cloud and the tamal tree." Gopal Das sang the whole of this chapter before Sri Gosaiji. Both he and Baila Kothari were delighted. Sri Gosaiji instructed Gopal Das to continue to sing the praises of Sri Vallabhacharyaji. Gopal Das again bowed to him and sang, "By simply remembering Sri Vallabhji, the son of Sri Lakshman, all one's sons are dissolved." When he sang these verses before Sri Gosaiji, he said, "Now Gomati's husband is truly an ocean." Such was his blessing upon him. After this, Gopal Das composed 7 more chapters. Bhav Prakash. In this story, we see how Sri Gosaiji uplifts his devotees. Baila Kothari was sure that Sri Gosaiji could transform Gopal Das into an ocean. His word was immediately fruitful. After this, Gopal Das also sang, "By the grace of the devotee's foot dust, everything can be perfected." Subsequently, Gopal Das composed many such poems in Gujarati in Narsi Mehta's name. Bhav Prakash. This is because he realized who he had been in his previous life. Now he knew that he had been Narsi Mehta and had, in that birth, sung to Sri Thakurji according to the ways of the path of lawful limitations. At this juncture, he wanted to sing to him according to the ways of the path of grace, so that his voice would now be related purely to the path of pure devotion. Part 2 continued. Sri Gosaiji transformed Gopal Das into an ocean through his grace. Note, here the meaning of ocean is an endless source of inspirational words expressing divine sentiments to the Lord. Sri Vallabhacharyaji called Surdasji and Paramanandji Dasji oceans too. Once Sri Gosaiji was in Gokul with Chachaji. Once Sri Gosaiji was in Gokul with Chacha Harivamsji. He instructed him to go to Gujarat. Chachaji asked him, "O Maharaj, how will I be able to pass my time without your sight?" Sri Gosaiji answered him, "Chachaji, keep in regular touch with Baila Kothari and Gopal Das. I will also regularly let you have my sight." Then Chachaji took his leave and left for Gujarat. From the day that he left Gokul, Chachaji was granted the daily sight of Sri Gosaiji. He reached his destination and there kept in regular contact with Baila Kothari and Gopal Das. Thus concludes Varta 11, the story of Gopal Das, a recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. There is, in reality, no end to his story. I'll take rest from the story today here, and Shri Vallabhadisha ki jai, Shri Gosaiji ki jai, Sab Vaishnavan ko jai Shri Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.